Estonia holds the presidency of the Council of the European Union for the first time in the second half of 2017. The aim of the Estonian presidency is to ensure that the EU remains united and decisive in these challenging times. Our role as the member state holding the presidency is to find a balance between all the views, traditions and interests in Europe today to achieve the best possible outcome for all European citizens. Although we will be taking forward all the key issues within the EU during our 6 months, we will focus on delivering most in 4 priority areas. An open and innovative European economy, a safe and secure Europe, a digital Europe and the free movement of data, an inclusive and sustainable Europe. The European economy has to be open and innovative to stay competitive. An economy can only be successful if it is open to opportunities, change, trade and new ideas. So we will work hard to future-proof the European economy by creating more opportunities for entrepreneurs, making regulations smarter and simpler, and developing our greatest joint asset, the single market. The EU must maintain safety and security for all its citizens and play its part in ensuring peace and stability in the world. We will work hard to find new solutions to make the financing of terrorism more difficult, to create databases and IT systems that improve information exchange between the police and security forces of member states, and to strengthen security through even stronger cooperation with NATO and the neighbors of the EU. The future of Europe and the world is digital. This brings great opportunities, but also creates vulnerabilities. Our task and challenge will be to balance the benefits and risks fairly. During our presidency, we will focus on advancing the digital single market, increasing the use of e-solutions and data, and on developing cross-border digital services. We strongly believe this will make the lives of everyone in Europe easier. The EU should be a champion of inclusivity and sustainability. We must re-examine the ways in which we can offer equal opportunities for our citizens who want to live and work across the EU. We need to adjust to changes in the labour market and our working lives. So, we will focus on ensuring equal opportunities for labour mobility within the EU. At the same time, we believe economic growth and development should not come at the expense of our natural resources and the world around us. Technology and nature do not need to be opposites. During our presidency, we will work to identify digital solutions and to harness technology for the benefit of our natural environment to preserve what we have today, also for future generations. To find out more about the priorities and plans for the Estonian presidency, visit eu2017.ee.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, please find yourself a seat and a good neighbor or interesting neighbor, so we may start the conference. My name is Kai Hermans and I'm from Ministry of Justice, and I have the pleasure to conduct this event today. Well, first, I would like to ask our Minister, Urmas Reinsalu, and Commissioner Vera Jourova to say their welcoming words. And then we will continue with the panels. So please, Urmas.
I send you my welcoming words. You're truly welcome here in Tallinn. Commissioner Jourova, Vera, members of the European Parliament, Judge Küllike Jürimäe, member of the European Court of Justice from Estonia, ladies and gentlemen, dear academicians, state officials. So the conference, the 21st European Company Law and Century European Company Law and Corporate Governance Conference, Crossing Borders Digitally. While it's a presidency conference, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the co-organizer of this event, the European Commission. You have done a great job, we truly appreciate that. As well as our good partners, Ernst & Young and the University of Tartu. Ladies and gentlemen, they say that good things happen to those who wait. I stand here before you full of hope for great things to happen in European company law. And all the initiatives, all the developments we would like to share, discuss, those are not issues as things themselves. Those are bases of the growth, basis of the European competitiveness in Europe, in global market. And it will probably come as no surprise to you that Estonia has been a strong supporter of the European Commission's efforts to reform company law in Europe. Estonia has been eagerly waiting for the reform package and is ready to contribute to its success in any way possible during its presidency. I have been told that good things sometimes take a while. The creative process behind the European company, for example, lasted almost 30 years, a generation, literally. That's quite a while. I think it demonstrates rather clearly how complex the subject matter is when one attempts to Europeanize company law. But the clocks are going more speedily today. The generation is not an ambition we should share now. Today it would seem that the winds of reform are picking up once again. A wide public consultation on the future of European company law has just ended, and I truly congratulate the Commission to pass that. Estonia also, with a group of like-minded countries, sent our proposals. And before the end of its presidency, Estonia will probably not have time to process any proposals that might be forthcoming. But it is my sincere hope that valuable ideas will emerge from this conference, right here, right now. Ideas that might help pave the way to real and effective changes in EU company law. The conference features the three larger topics that one could label as hot in the current European company law discourse. The first panel covers all things digital as they relate to companies. The second panel deals with cross-border mobility of companies. And the third is dedicated to questions related to conflict of laws rules. The first panel is digital company law and corporate governance. The panel embodies the title of the conference: New media, new kinds of services, and new ways of communication. All of these areas in your everyday lives have changed for good thanks to digital developments. The focus of this panel is on a wide range of issues that concern the use of digital technologies in the corporate world. This new digital world is the reality of today. It's only natural that the law must follow the same path and catch up with this new reality. And this is also a task to a pan-European, but also to national governments when we are speaking about the public services in the field of justice. And this summer we had an informal ministerial meeting in Tallinn in justice affairs, and we put an ambition, an agenda, that our vision should be a fully digital e-justice system in Europe. Setting up or terminating a company and everything that happens in between, could this all be done digitally? It is feasible to use electronic means for all communications within a company as well as with the outer world. A proper legal framework needs to be in place to be able to provide all of these possibilities in an effective and secure manner. The second panel is on the cross-border mobility of companies. The freedom of establishment, it is anchored in the treaties, has been confirmed by the Court of Justice, but so far has only been addressed in secondary EU legislation to a limited degree. Only as a limited degree. How much mobility do we need? Do we need more? Where are the so-called red lines? And as I say, Estonia, a group of like-minded countries, sent our proposals to the Commission also to study a full transfer of the company seats. We believe this is one of the core freedoms we need to guarantee in sake of business in European soil. I already mentioned the European company. The use of this form of company has not been very widespread, and this is a reality. While the number of registrations of such companies has arisen in recent years, smaller enterprises still consider application of the statute to be far too cumbersome. Then there is a directive of cross-border mergers, which I would describe as a true success story. For some 10 years already, European entrepreneurs have made active use of this set of rules. And this is actually our joint victory. Of course, a number of other mobility-friendly European company forms have also been attempted. It would seem that rules on cross-border divisions and cross-border conversions are the necessary missing pieces of the puzzle in current EU company law. Having simple and legally sound rules in this area would help to truly realize the freedom of establishment. In the haste of moving around in Europe with companies in tow, one should not, of course, forget about other aspects of mobility, which is why I'm equally looking forward to the discussions about the social aspects of cross-border company law. I'm confident that a well-balanced examination of these sensitive topics will be demonstrated in this panel. And the third panel addresses the law applicable to the companies. For me personally, the third topic of the conference is the most mysterious. I have a feeling that comparing the field of private international law to the glass bed game might not be entirely out of place. The real seat theory versus incorporation theory, is this a collision of two different worlds, or is there room for an amicable solution? How much potential, if any, is there for harmonization? The panelists will have the opportunity to shed some light onto this topic tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I started by making a remark that good things happen to those who wait, but to win in a lottery, first you have to buy a lottery ticket. It will not happen. So there is a need to do something actively. So we have to make reality what we wish to see happen. So dear Commissioner, members of the European Parliament, policymakers, practitioners, let's make things happen. And I wish you all intellectually stimulating conference. Thank you very much.
Minister Reinsalu, dear Urmas, ladies and gentlemen, I have been just injected with all that optimism and strength stemming from the minister. He seems to be well prepared for the presidency for those 4 difficult and demanding months to come for the presidency. I would like to thank the Estonian Ministry for Justice for organizing the 21st European Company Law and Corporate Governance Conference. It is a pleasure for me to open this important event. It is very appropriate to hold a conference called Crossing Borders Digitally here in Tallinn, in this very city, because Tallinn stands proud as a Baltic tiger, punching well above its weight as a forerunner in digitalization and in e-government. And the Commission would like the whole Europe to take inspiration from you. We have already started in July when the minister presented the whole concept of e-governance and e-government in Estonia, and I can tell you many ministers, including me, were astonished by what Estonia has achieved. And Urmas, you are right, the good things might happen to those who can wait. It could be a good motto for the Czechs. I am a Czech person because our very frequent sentence is, let's wait and see. But it doesn't pay for digitalization because time is very speedy and globalization also is pushing Europe to go more digital. And I would not say it's a lottery, maybe it might be a Russian roulette, but we have to undertake the risks, including starting some of the very difficult and complicated talks, for instance, about the seat. Because you know that in company law, we are in a field, I would say even a holy field of national civil justice sphere, and we need to come to a pan-European solution. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you know that growth and investment are priority in the EU, and this is why we aim to build our future actions on the strengths of the single market. We want and we must make it fit for digital age and create a real launch pad for our companies. As you know, the Commission we committed ourselves in this year's work program for preparing a company law package. Its aim is twofold. First, we want to create a digital single market with clear benefits and digital solutions for European businesses. And second, we want to facilitate their cross-border operations. At this moment, there are 24 million companies in the EU, and 99% are small and medium-sized enterprises. We want to help them flourish and expand, in particular the smaller ones, that feel the effects of costs and barriers the most. The company law in the EU plays a crucial role in this, as it deals with the setting up, the operation and transformation of companies. A modern and reliable legal framework which accommodates the needs of business can help companies operate in the EU, especially across borders, without administrative burdens and costly procedures. At the same time, we need a fairer internal market. We want to open the door for honest businesses and give their efforts the boost they need. And we must provide cross-border protection for those involved in and affected by the affairs of the company, such as employees, creditors, minority shareholders, and a society as a whole. But the current EU company law acquis is old and outdated. The first company law directive dates back to 1968. So what we do need to adapt or modernize. First, we want to enhance the responsible use by companies of the opportunities brought by the rapid development of digital technologies. And you are right, dear Minister, to promote this topic under the Estonian presidency also in the context of company law is the proper thing. Our economy is becoming increasingly digital through the emergence of new technologies such as social, mobile, big and open data. Processes in companies are more and more paperless. The cloud, digital applications and remote IT services are replacing and redefining the traditional office space and are taking charge of accounting, logistics and communications. However, despite these developments, basic company law procedures and requirements throughout a company's life cycle are still often based on old traditions. The company law rules at EU and national level still hinge a lot on the assumption that only tangible paper, and the physical presence of a person would fulfill the legal requirements. Today, only 17 member states provide a procedure for the online registration of companies. The digital age requires a change of mindset with regards to company law. The EU single market cannot function effectively unless companies are able to use digital tools and processes easily and efficiently everywhere in the EU. If businesses and governments were able to fully benefit from digital tools, Europe could unlock an estimated, I would say even shocking, 415 billion per year for the economy and create hundreds of thousands of new jobs. If offered with care and necessary safeguards, digital tools and processes can facilitate access to information for everybody and hence increase trust in the single market. But we need to get this right, and Estonia can serve as a very good example and inspiration. Let me give you one concrete recent example, the Business Registers Interconnection System, the so-called BRIS, which is up and running since 8 June of 2017. It is a first step to improve the use of digital technologies. Before, diverse national registers held information on companies, so procedures to request information were often lengthy and costly. Now, citizens and companies can search for information filed in the national registers via a single entry point, the e-justice portal. BRIS already gives access to data on around 20 million companies in Europe, and only 1 month after it went live, there were more than 25,000 searches for company data by European and third country users. This shows that businesses, consumers, investors, and authorities are keen to make use of this new service. It will help create a more transparent and trustworthy environment for doing business in the single market of European Union. But, ladies and gentlemen, I share the Estonian presidency's view that digitalization alone would not be enough to foster cross-border mobility of companies within the single market. Despite the right of freedom of establishment under the EU treaty, businesses, and again in particular small and medium enterprises, still face barriers due to the lack of a clear and predictable legal framework when wanting to operate across borders. For instance, to fully use the opportunities the single market could offer, companies need to be able to merge smoothly, divide or move across borders. EU rules on cross-border mergers exist since 2005, but we need to check whether they are still fit for purpose. At the same time, there is no legal framework in the EU which allows companies to divide across borders or to move, or, as you say in company law, to convert to another member state. Also, at present, companies do not know which law applies to them in cross-border situations, and sometimes they face contradictory laws at the same time. There is no uniform conflict of law rules as regards company law, yet. Moreover, this also means that there is no clear framework for the protection of stakeholders in case of cross-border operations of companies. Some stakeholders even stress that due to the lack of rules or the complexity of them, the freedom of establishment is abused by some companies. And we want to stimulate the growth potential of companies, their ability to restructure and to relocate within the single market. We need to do this by bringing more legal certainty and safeguards for all those that might be affected. When working on this company law package, we must address the following challenges. First, how can we make sure that companies will not abuse the freedom of establishment as guaranteed by the treaties? Second, how can we address the issue of companies which move across borders for no real, I would add, honest, economic reasons? How should we guarantee that cross-border operations of companies have no negative impact on employees' rights? Fourth challenge, how can we secure the interests of creditors and minority stakeholders? And finally, and how should we address the challenges of digitalization, such as identifications of actors, legal certainty, and legal security? Heavy stuff. We asked about all those challenges. We asked about these matters in the consultation, which we closed in August. We were given very diverging views, I must say, from businesses, from professionals, especially notaries, from trade unions. Dear Urmas, it will be a big work to create out of all that one well-balanced proposal. What the consultation showed. The online registration of business activity is the most important one out of 10 online procedures for business. Between 2008 and 2012, the number of cross-border mergers rose by 173% as a result of the corresponding EU directive. In a survey in 2015, companies told us that divisions offer a way for them to change or simplify the structure of their organization, adapt to market conditions, and realize new business opportunities. Yet only about 100 cross-border divisions occur in the EU every year. 100. Because companies cannot do it if there is no reliable legal framework. Around 207 million euros could be saved in startup and merger costs if 0.5% of the companies would move within the EU and could use EU rules on cross-border transfers of registered office. The saved money would be, I am sure you agree with me, would be better invested in jobs, innovation, and growth. But the prospect of these costs deters companies from moving, in particular the small ones. Besides gathering economic evidence, as I said before, we are collecting the views of stakeholders. We would like to hear also from you, not only from those who responded to our open consultation, to hear from you what you consider as the main problems and how you would address them. The evidence we collect and the results of the consultation process and today's conference will help the Commission to assess the impacts of the future initiative properly and in full respect of better regulation. Speaking about the future, I speak about very near future because we aim to present the company law initiative in November this year. I'm coming to the end. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I would like to thank the Estonian presidency for its support of the EU company law reform and for providing a valuable platform for debate on EU company law and corporate governance. And I wish you all fruitful discussions and a successful conference. I will be very, very curious about the results. Thank you very much.
So, Thank you, Urmas and Vera, for your encouraging and inspiring words. So, our first panel is about to start, so we can contribute to the future. I would like to introduce our first moderator, Catherine Catillard. And she is an excellent combination of practical and theoretical knowledge. She's a practicing lawyer in France and in Luxembourg, and she knows all about cross-border mergers. But she is also a lecturer in the university and writer or author of many articles about European company law. So please, Catherine, take the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much to the European Commission and the Ministry of Justice of Estonia for their invitation to this conference. I would like to invite the audience to participate in the poll, and just let me explain how to proceed. Polls are organized on the web during the conference, so you will be invited to answer to questions in relation to the panels of the conference. At the Q&A session at the end of this morning, the outcome of the poll with graphics will be projected on the screen on the wall and shortly discussed if needed. So the polls are now available on this web address. And you can please enter the page on your computer. Click on Enter Here. Under Event ID, you can enter the keyword Company Law in capital letters, no space. Click on Join, and then you will reach the conference page, and you can see the panels. Then you can select Panel 1, Digital Company Law, and click on Read More. It's too fast, or it's okay? Too fast? Oh, sorry. It's okay? No?
Is there a version in English?
It's okay? Oh. Yes, it's okay. Okay, next. And you can select panel 1. You have the first question. First question. Should it be possible to establish a company fully online in all EU countries?
Yes.
So please select the answer that best applies to your opinion and validate your answer by the green arrow in the right bottom corner. So let me, we can let this on the screen, and let me introduce panel 1 on digital company law and corporate governance. Digital technologies are currently universally available, and the European Union is in the digital age. Digital solutions are considered as one of the key drivers for companies. However, there are still some difficulties, as many provisions of law have not been adopted to allow their digital tools to be validly used. At national level, the legal conditions for the use of digital technologies and the most common solutions allowed and used in the member states will be presented during this panel 1 by Christian Busca from Ernst & Young. Considering solutions adopted by the different member states, we will see that there is no common approach in the matter of enabling to set up a company online, or filing documents electronically in business registers, or also enabling companies to use digital tools for communication between the management and the shareholders, or to provide information to the various stakeholders. Online board meetings or the holding of fully dematerialized shareholders' meeting, for example, could not be possible when the legal national rules are not adapted. This situation leads to difficulties and costs, especially for companies operating across borders. What has already been done at the EU level? Professor Pierre-Henri Connac from the University of Luxembourg will present us in more details the current European legal framework in the field of digital company law and corporate governance. Among the European initiatives, we can briefly identify, firstly, the interconnection of national business registers, available since June 2017, improving the access of information contained in the national registers and the exchanges between the national registers. Our second speaker, Mr. Kurz from the European Commission, will present the European Business Registers Interconnection System, BRIS. During this panel 1, we will have also a presentation of the Estonian Business Register by Mr. Valli. A second European initiative, we have the revised Shareholder Rights Directive of March 2017, which facilitates the communication and exchange of information between companies and their shareholders. And we have also the regulation on electronic identification and trust services for electronic transactions in the internal market, adopted in July 2014, which provides a regulatory environment to secure electronic interactions between businesses, citizens, and public authorities, and some safeguard for identity identification. The proposal for a directive on single-member private limited liability companies, if adopted, will allow a single-member company to be informed online. Our first speaker, Mrs. Kaja Kallas, will present the views of the European Parliament on the digital company law. Considering that there is a possible way forward and further actions to undertake at European level, many questions arise on how to proceed. The various existing corporate governance regimes of the member states have certainly to be taken into consideration. A technology-neutral approach seems also to be considered in the view of anticipating the future development of technologies. Regarding the application of the European principles of subsidiarity and proportionality, we have also to consider that actions at European level should meet the following criteria. First, the European actions should have transnational aspects that cannot be resolved by member states themselves. Secondly, national actions or an absence of action will be contrary to the requirement of the treaty. And then action at European level should have clear advantages. Another question will be the choice between a mutual recognition or a detailed general harmonization. For example, should electronic documents be acceptable as evidence, as a general principle applicable in each member state? In cross-border operations, could we consider that national competent authorities should accept electronic documents as evidence when they are already accepted as such in the home member state? Should we consider as a better way to proceed to establish minimum standards where problems may occur and initiative may be essential? To conclude this short introduction, it is clear that the use of electronic tools allows extensive communication at low or no cost. Digitalization may certainly facilitate better exchange of information between a company and its shareholders, and the shareholders' engagement with the company and its management. In this panel 1, we will look at the existing EU initiatives in digital company law and corporate governance, focus on the current difficulties and the solutions allowed at the level of the member states, and finally, we will try to identify how to address solutions at the European level to facilitate the use of digital technologies, improve the company's life by reducing costs, avoiding legal uncertainty, and make procedures easier and faster. Faced with such a big challenge, let me now open the discussions. Dear panelists, could you please take place on the stage? Thank you. So now I'm pleased to introduce Mrs. Kaja Kallas, member of the European Parliament. Mrs. Kallas, could you please give us the views of the European Parliament on the digital company law?
Will I go there? Okay, please. Good morning to you all.
First of all, I must say that this is not exactly my topic that I deal with in the European Parliament, but as Estonia has only 6 members in the European Parliament, and I deal with the digital issues, and I used to be a lawyer, a corporate lawyer, so it is closest to my field of expertise. First, I would say that the question that was on the wall here, I would definitely answer yes. The companies should be able to establish companies online, full stop, everywhere. Some say that the internet is making the world much smaller, which means that people are closer together, they are more connected, and it reduces the importance of the distance between the people. Businesses and countries. And businesses are very much understanding that. If you talk to young entrepreneurs, they start to think of globally first. So they don't think that I establish a company to provide services or goods in my hometown, but they think globally. They might have a niche idea that in Estonia could have 2 consumers, but worldwide it could be millions. So they establish this. They start to think globally. So the countries and the administrations should also understand that this is the way the world is moving. Deepening the single market has been the work in progress for the EU since the creation almost 25 years ago. It was never done deal from the start, but with the growth and constant development and expansion of the internet, removing the barriers between EU countries has become more pressing. Because the barriers just don't make sense if you do business online. So the strategy of the digital single market has this goal of removing these barriers, ending the fragmentation from contract law to consumer law to copyright and portability of content. And technology, cross-border online services should be one key pillar to facilitate the life of the businesses and help to remove the barriers to trade. The single market is based on the free movement of goods and services, but administrative procedures, given their complexity, are not that they are not fully digital and accessible cross-border prevents companies and citizens to fully benefit from this freedom. A priority of the Commission in the e-government action plan is to accelerate the development of these cross-border services and in particular facilitate the use of digital technologies throughout the company's life cycle. So the national authorities should also interact with each other to exchange information. The interconnection of business registers in the Union is a good example, as it means that we can search for information on companies registered in EU and the registers can share information on foreign branches and cross-border mergers. But as we heard from the Commissioner, it's not a very relevant practice. The Commission also put a new proposal on the table, which is the single digital gateway, trying to push the member states to have a full digitization of the front office. That means that the businesses and the people can have the interface on the one hand with the national authorities, and also the national authorities with each other. And it also means to have key procedures of general relevance for citizens and businesses to be fully accessible online, including for cross-border users. Indeed, the company should be able to use digital services to set up online and then operate across Europe, but it also should be end-to-end process. Very often we see that this is digital only in 75%. So it means that you can fulfill everything online, and then, last 25%, you still have to go somewhere to, sign papers and present yourself. this process needs to be online from end to end. When you talk to the businesses, then there are different things that they always bring up. And one of the things is definitely the recognition of invoices as well as the VAT scheme. So I think that, you know, the digital tools give us plenty of opportunities, and you can still have different tax systems in different countries, but you could have an online platform where the companies could do it online to make it much easier to actually get the money, because what we see in the e-commerce is that not very many companies operate online. Even if they sell online, they don't sell cross borders. Only 7% of companies sell their services online cross borders, and this is very much due to the fact that you can't really file the VATs, and all the processes are so different in different member states. So they just say that I don't need the fuss, so I will just operate in one country and that's all. And if we put this, if we establish this system that is too complicated, then, you know, the companies just refrain from selling online altogether, and this is not what we want, definitely. So there is a lot to be done on online procedures across the Union, as there is no common approach across the EU to enable persons to set up a company online, to use digital technology to provide further information about the company, and to enable companies to use digital technology to communicate with shareholders and to provide information to others. What is also very important is the interoperability. So technology does not require to have one single system. We can have different systems across the Union, but they have to be interoperable so they can talk to each other. This is an interesting aspect of the X-Road that we have in Estonia, what is the architecture at the basis of the Estonian e-government, as it gives the flexibility to the different administrations and organizations using the X-Road still to have and build their own systems, but they have to interoperable. And I assume that speakers will talk about that. Importance of the common standards is definitely on the table. That comes to the interoperability of the systems, but also regarding the open data. The governments have more and more data about different things, but it should be open to the businesses and consumers, because the businesses and consumers can build services on those and can actually provide people the thing they need. But this has to go hand in hand with the data standards. So information gathered by one member should be available to public at large. And if this information in the first place is collected in a standard that is readable by machines in other member states, we will benefit from the value of open data at union level. I'm often asked, what is the most important thing when it comes to digitization of the law and the administration or e-governance? And I always say that it's the digital identities, to have secure and encrypted digital identities. Why? Because on those we can build a lot of services, and when it comes to online, then it is very much about the trust. And how can you communicate? How can you do businesses between transactions between companies if you don't know who are the other people that you are doing the transactions with? I always liked this example of there was this cartoon where, you know, two dogs were behind a computer, and one one dog was saying to the other that, oh, I can't do this, I'm a dog. And the other one said that, well, the power of the internet is that nobody knows you're a dog. So actually to create these digital identities that the states will issue will take this problem down, because then, you know, it's not based on email or whatever, either other identification measure like Facebook or whatever, but it's based on digital identities. And of course, it's not only about statistics, because statistics show that, for example, the digital signatures save Estonian people 5 working days per year, just not to sign things on paper. But it's also that we can solve many problems. As I said, taxes is a good example. Not only the identity, but also services that it can be used once the identity problem has been solved. Take the blockchain technology, for example. Blockchain technology is a pseudo-anonymous technology, which means that you can really make sure that, you know, transaction is done, but it doesn't tell you anything about the people who are doing the transaction. So together with the digital identities and the blockchain technology, you can make sure that the transaction is done correctly, as well as it's done by people that really say that they are who they are. Regarding trust, all this digital transformation is based on trust. And cross-border exchange of information between countries means for national administrations to trust the quality of data and procedure done in another member state. This lack of trust between authorities is often the key barrier to cooperation in the Union. On cybersecurity, for instance, member states are really reluctant to cooperate, share the vulnerabilities of their businesses, but the bad guys cooperate, so we have to cooperate as well to make our system stronger. When it comes to data issues, then one big topic is the free flow of data. There are a lot of member states who say that or introduce the data localization requirements in their countries. And this goes just totally against the whole idea of interaction or data sharing, or how people and businesses work. So if you have, for example, the requirements of supervisory authorities that financial service providers should store their data locally, but you know it might be much more secure when it's in the cloud, then it's very hard to implement the rules. Of course, when I asked the countries who introduced these kind of rules, then they say that, you know, the data is much more secure in our country. Why do you say that? Why do you actually say that? You have a server, just a house somewhere, you know, something happens to the house, so you still have to have backup copies somewhere. So why not trust cloud? But that's a big issue. Regarding data, of course, we can't go past data protection. So the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, provides a single set of rules with a high level of protection of personal data for the entire EU. It reinforces consumer confidence in online services and ensures a uniform application of the rules in member states through a stronger national data protection authorities. But again, it is very vital that the member states cooperate because although it's a regulation, we already hear that member states are interpreting the rules totally different. So for companies that operate online, this might create a big problem because, you know, they might be in compliance with the same rules in a different member states and they are not considered to comply with the rules in another member state. the lack of trust in digital solutions altogether that I wanted to address as a last point. I'm sorry. And this is that there's a misconception that digital is somehow less trustworthy than something offline. Why is there such a belief? If you think about handwritten signatures versus digital signatures, for example, how many of you have actually imitated their parents' signature when you were a child? I couldn't do that because my father's signature was on our money, but and all the teachers could tell that this is not your father's signature. But most of my friends didn't have that problem, so they could easily imitate their parents' signature if there was a bad grade. But how do we say that a handwritten signature is somehow more secure? How do you know that it's written by that person? Whereas when you have digital signatures, there are certain steps that you have to go through, and it's still much more clear as there is line online that you can follow that who has done that, and it goes together with the digital identities, of course. And when developing digital signatures together with the digital identities, then of course it has to go hand in hand, the offer and the demand side, because again, when I talk to different member states, and they say that, you know, we asked our people, they don't want digital identities. But we created digital identities in 2000 in Estonia. If we had asked our people, what do you think? Do you need digital identities? Well, everybody would have answered no, or what is that? Because nobody knew that. But we created the demand side as well as the offer side, which meant that you also created digital services that the people could use these identities for. And again, the best example is filing tax declarations. I think we are the only country in the world where people actually compete how fast they did taxes. Currently, my friends say that they have done it in 50 seconds. Well, I did it in 2 minutes, so maybe it's more complicated for me, or I'm just older, I don't know. But anyway, and 98% of Estonian people actually do this online. And why? The positive side of this is that you get the money back real quick. So you file the taxes online, you get the money back in 3 days, and that's a thing for the people that they definitely understand. These are the points that I wanted to raise, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kajakalas. We understand that we have big issues regarding digital identities, the use of blockchain technologies and data protection for the security of transactions. Now, please let me introduce Mr. Bartolomew Kurz from the European Commission, Directorate General for Justice and Consumer, to present the interconnection of national business registers. Please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here, and I would like to congratulate the Estonian presidency for having such a good idea to organize the conference, not only on corporate governance, but also on company law. That is a subject that is important, and part of that importance comes from one of the biggest achievements that the Commission had in company law field in last years, that is the interconnection of business registers. As you no doubt appreciate, when I thought that I would be speaking right after the Commissioner, I thought the best thing I could do would be to quote her. Now, if she's not there, I would still quote her, and then please you rather than her. So that's what the Commissioner has said, that when working together with other companies, businesses, consumers, investors, and authorities, we want to basically quickly check whether these companies really exist, whether they are trustworthy, and who is legally representing the company. So the interconnection of business registers will contribute to a more transparent and trustworthy environment for making businesses in the single market. So what is at stake? I mean, when I look at most people in the audience, I know most of the faces. That means that most of you actually know what the interconnection of business registers is. You know, we've heard a lot of calls for having a European business register, so one central European business register. But the idea of that system is different, is knowing how different the business registers are in member states, what kind of different controls they entail. The idea was of going step by step and interconnecting the existing registers. So the first point is this is not a central business register, but there is a central platform through which the communication goes from national business registers. Whether we will have a one central business register one day, that's a very different question. But if the interconnection works, this is, as the previous speaker has said, we don't have to have identical solutions as long as interoperability is there, and this is exactly the example of interoperability. So we have much more information about companies in one single click than we've ever had before. Now, someone has asked me, yes, you can, but you know, I could click before also in national registers, and I could get the same information. Yes, but here the whole idea is that you have a one single search portal, and once you write down the name of the company, immediately you get the information not only coming from one business register, but also from others, and that is the added value. So not only multilingual search, but also the system offers possibility for notifications between registers via the platform. That is especially important for cross-border operations, such as cross-border mergers. Now, it can be also very relevant for some other operations that my commissioner has mentioned, if ever these operations will be put in law. Now, the precedent is set for other interconnections. It was the first time where we started with company law, but then comes the insolvency registers interconnection, maybe also the beneficial owners interconnection. Some of the registers already have the information about beneficial owners in their business registers. So the precedent is set. It's been a lot of work for my colleagues, and I know them because I had them almost every third day in the office and saying, my God, how can we do it? Can we do it? Can we do it? Because there was basically nothing to base ourselves on, so everything had to be invented. Now, this is what the end result is. So you can basically go into the e-justice portal, search criteria, and then you enter company name. You can enter also the registration number, and then there's a tip how to find the registration number, and then you have to click on terms and conditions, and there you go, and then you have as many results as possible. Now, but would you be able to find for that search mechanism everything that is in business registers? And the answer is no, because there's a lot of information in business registers that is still not interconnected. In particular, some member states have information about not only limited liability companies, but also about sole traders, about non-limited liability enterprises, and you need a legal base to do it. Physically, it can be done. The process is there. It's very easy to extend, but you need a legal base to do it. And so far, the acquis has been focused very much on limited liability companies, and that's why this is where we have to start from somewhere. As you see on that slide, actually in the right-hand corner, there's something looking like a little trolley from the shop, so then you immediately see that there's some money involved in it, but I'll come back to that in a second. So the interconnection of business registers today, there are more than 20 million companies already covered. Actually, according to the most recent data I got from a colleague, is 22 million. The communication between registers on cross-border mergers and foreign branches, it works. There has been already a couple of communications exchanged on cross-border mergers. Now, and that comes now the trolley thing and the money thing. The documents against payment are not yet available. Now, that was the most difficult part in the work on the interconnection of business registers. Everything was difficult, but that was the most difficult because somehow the Commission is good in managing the programs involving the money, but first time it had to collect the money, and then actually it had to redistribute it to the member states through a system which also calculates VAT, and then it got stuck. Now, and it got stuck, by the way, not because of the Commission. Imagine that we asked. I mean, we sent the terms of reference, and there were not so many companies actually willing to do a task, a paid task for money, to do that for us, because they found it complex or too complicated. So you see, one of the best solutions would be if all the documents that are available in business registers would be available for free, but they aren't. And they are different models so far in member states. So most member states have, and that is also put in the directive, certain information that have to be available free of charge, but other information is not available free of charge. And if you start downloading that item per item, this information, then this is not easy, and especially if you have to pay per every single item. So this solution is going to come, I hope, at the European level, but we've never had it. I mean, we've never had this. Again, another precedent. There is some sort of a private company managing something for the Commission that collects the money and redistributes it into member states. So this is where we are. In short term, we would like to have every member state connected. Now we've got 22 member states. We have one EA member that is connected too. Now, at this stage, I wouldn't say which member states are not connected, since we've got such wonderful hosts, you know. The enhanced, I mean, they are enhanced features based on user feedback. So we will basically collect feedback in order to prepare an evaluation in 5 years. But every time there is a help desk, and we'll collect all sorts of problems and information that comes from that help desk, and then based on that user feedback, we'll be constantly improving the accessibility of the system. Now, so that is in the short term. We would like every member state to be connected, and we would like to improve the system, that it works as good as it can. And finally, obviously, find a solution for the payments. Now, the challenges. As I've mentioned already, not every information contained in business register is first of all interconnected. Second of all, is not easily searchable. So that's another challenge. Because you can get a document, you can, for example, get articles of association, instruments of constitution of a company, but it's very difficult to search because exactly they are not protocols, they are compatible, they are often in PDF format. So this is not a metadata, and it's and this is what's been a lot of people complain somehow, saying if I want to get specific data from business registers in my country. even though it's digitalized, I actually write a mail to the registrar in order to get extracts of some of this information because I can't find it. But that's the challenge. So we would like to go in the direction of information that is easily searchable, that is machine searchable, whatever you call it, something that can be processed very fast. And then there's, for example, a lot of information in the instrument of constitution of a company, but if it is in PDF, it's very difficult to somehow put it together with the PDFs of the other countries and make sense out of it. So, as I've mentioned, we so far have only limited liability companies. The issue of payment hopefully is going to be resolved soon. Now, the system is also ready for the connection of third countries, but we would like first member states to connect before third countries are connected. But there is this possibility, so we should keep it in mind that is technically possible. It really is a political decision. Now, so what's next? So in the longer run, we will explore a sort of new scenarios for the use of the system that has to do with new cross-border operations, that has to do with exactly maybe using the information that is already there, that is maybe also thinking of the future of interconnecting the other interconnections. So, I mean, business and insolvency is very closely connected. So maybe that's one of the future ideas. But that is very much looking far ahead. Now, we will have to evaluate the system. As I said, every 5 years there's an evaluation. We will look particularly on the question of whether is user-friendly, to which extent you can extract this machine searchable information. Can we encourage member states to have more machine searchable data, convert it in their own business registers, that it will be easier to search at the European level. So, I mean, this is basically where where we are, and the system offers a lot of transparency. Now, I want to stress that obviously how trustworthy the information is depends on member states, because it is an interconnection of business registers of member states. It's not a central European register. So yes, that is a challenging thought at the end, is how trustworthy information you can find. You can be sure that it comes from business register. So in that sense, it is trustworthy. But whether the information that was put in a register is exactly of the same value in one member state or the other, that's another challenge for the future. So at least transparency is there, the easiness of search is there, our willingness of taking the feedback and improve the system, and the rest is for you. Just go and search. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kurz, for this presentation of the interconnection of national business registers. It is obviously a very interesting tool for cross-border transactions. And I'm pleased now to introduce Mr. Ingmar Valli from the Estonian Center of Registers and Information Systems, Head of Court Register Department, to present the Estonian Business Register.
Hi, welcome to Estonia. Dear guests, honored guests, and colleagues, it's my pleasure to introduce to you some of the innovations we have done in Estonian Business Registry. I'm a bit more technical person, but I'll try to keep as low-tech as I can. The Estonian Business Register, we call it commercial register, sometimes business register. It's a central point for the government, It's one of the foundations of our e-government. We rely on the business information in order to do everything in business and also in the government sector. So we have centralized one technical solution, technical central business register. And today we talk about two things, which is the register itself and the commercial registration or company registration portal. And the register itself is operated under the court. It's one of the court registers together with the land register. And we have also centralized this under one court to simplify the procedures and to put more efficiency to the organization. It's very similar to the German-Austrian legal system. And it has more reasons than that, meaning that we want to ensure the independence of legal competence of the registrar. And that's why it's under the courts. And it works quite well for Estonia. We have three different types of entries in the business registry. Constitutive entries, which come to effect when it's made to the register. For example, articles of association and mergers and divisions. Then we have entries having just a public credibility, meaning that the entries are done, but they get the effect when they are signed. For example, when the board members are elected and so on. And then we have just information in the business register which has informational value. It's presumed to be correct, nevertheless, and it has value for the business environment. And in order to get the data or the information to the central business register or commercial register, we have built this tool called Company Registration Portal. Actually, it was initiated in 2006 somewhere by a person called Siim Kallas, which is the father of our panelists. And it was a very good initiative. So everybody was thinking how we can improve the business environment. And what we did with this company registration process is that we had in 2007 and before 2007 not very long process. It was about 5 days to start a business in Estonia. But the problem was something else. The problem was that it wasn't very convenient, and the businessmen started to complain that it's e-nation what we have in Estonia. Why not make it simplified? And the paper was the problem, and also a lot of participants. People had to go to a notary, then they had to take the papers to the registry, and it took many days, and so on and so on. So it was a problem of its own. And the problem occurred more urgently in the archive rooms, meaning that we had the problem of low storage room. And we had the decision to make whether to build more archive rooms or to start thinking electronic. Of course, Estonia as an e-nation, the decision was obvious, meaning that the whole government has been pushing electronic services. So today, the situation looks like this, meaning that there is nothing there. And we actually closed the archive rooms. It saved quite a lot of money in the process, which is actually good because that's an important step. Of course, in 2007, we had a lot of people coming into the counter service to do what? To bring papers and to receive papers. So it's obvious that the problem is paper itself. So when there's no paper, there's no people. There's no problem. And what we did, we closed down the counter service because no one actually came there. There's nothing to do there. You can do everything online. We still have few offices for the meetings for the registrars. And how did we achieve all this, getting rid of paper? We optimized the process. We removed a notary from the process because it was excess. We didn't need it anymore. Why? Because we started using electronic signatures, electronic authentications, what the previous presenters also mentioned, meaning that we can offer better service with electronic identities. And it made the whole process very, very fast and seamless, meaning that we built the whole process in a view of no papers, no uploads, no bringing something somewhere. Everything must be digital from the beginning and also end digital. So from one point to another. Of course, we had to change the laws, we had to change the processes, technology, and most importantly, people. It was very hard to change the minds of people. But of course, on the way, or already in the beginning, we realized that we cannot be digital 100%. In that sense that we still need to have a service for the people who have disabilities, who don't know how to use computers, who are foreigners or coming in, they don't have electronic identities, they don't have electronic signatures. So for that, a very good process in the notary office. So we let the users to choose whether they want to have a personalized service by the notary or they use themselves via electronic means. I will show you the statistics, how the people have been choosing the processes. But both of them processes are working well, and that's quite good. The important part is from the government side, we don't receive any more papers. We killed the paper. That's good. The portal itself, it's just a simple electronic system that helps to start a business, to manage your business, change information. There is no need for a notary for this, and there is no paperwork. So, meaning that you don't need to upload anything, just fill in, sign electronic, and done. And you can start different types of companies in the portal. Of course, the portal itself, it has more functionality. It has annual reporting, which is mandatory electronically. It has an accounting system for the new startup companies so they can start more easily and by the book. So we help the startups to grow faster. Of course, we have political parties in there as well. Lots of different functionalities, which make things easier for the entrepreneurs. Of course, the commercial register is the biggest one. We still have government also, government institutions and local authorities. So we have all legal entities in one single place where we can search and register them. And from the companies, private limited companies, the most used, 81%, and this most valued. So let's go quickly over the company registration portal. Let's go inside, let's do the walkthrough of the portal. The first thing, as mentioned, we need to authenticate people. We need to know who's behind the computer. There is no real e-government if you don't have electronic identity. There's no e-government if you don't have a number for a person. We have the number since the birth. And we use this number in all the government systems. We have the electronic identity basically from the birth. And then we can use this in the e-government systems. Moreover, in 2009, we wanted to get more foreign investments, though we started accepting also foreign electronic identities from Portugal, from Belgium, Finland. It worked a little bit, but not very efficiently. We had 100, 200 companies established with foreign identities in our electronic systems. I think Estonian company registration portal was one of the first internet e-government systems that started accepting foreign identities and foreign electronic signatures. It wasn't easy. It was really pain in technically wise. So when you use your electronic identity, we use it inside our smart card. It's related to our physical document. You need to put inside your computer. By the way, you need also a card reader for this. And in the conference bag, you also have one of those card readers, those small ones. So I will tell you what you can do with this later on. But you have this smart card reader, so if you have a smart card, you can start reading it. I will tell you where you get the card. So in order to use the e-government service, you need to authenticate yourself. You need to show that it's you. It's like going to the ATM machine, putting in your card, your PIN code, receiving money. In this case, you will receive the service. And inside the portal immediately knows that it's you. You can see your companies. It relates your identity to the data in the business registry. And this says, now you can change your data, change the name of the company, change the board members, change the address of the company. You can do this online very easily. And there are certain types of companies that you can really establish online. And the private limited one is the most useful in Estonia and most used. So I will go through quickly the form. The form itself, it's not a really big one. It's one-page form. You need to just fill in your information, send it away, and that's done. Of course, the first one to fill in and choose is the company name. And when you choose the company name, we go through the other government systems, what we need to check, and ask trademarks and ask company name that are existing, because in Estonia, the name must be unique. So the name itself actually is the hardest part to optimize, to serve. The name is, I would dare to say that the name is the only reason we still have humans making the decisions, because it's a bit exaggerated, but still the name is a very hard part to make unique by technology. So when the name is checked and from different databases, from trademarks, you can add more information to the form. Share capital is one of the information, meaning that you can choose two ways. You can pay in the share capital straight away, but in many countries nowadays, everybody are removing the barrier of this burden of paying in the share capital. So also Estonia has done this. You can establish the company and make the share capital contribution later on, within the year or within the 2 years or whatever time you choose. So this helps, again, to fasten the starting process, and entrepreneurs who do not have the share capital right away, they can start the business quickly online, and then during the year pay in the share capital. That works really well. And the data we enter to the forms, we check it. We check it from the electronic identity. Therefore, we have no mistakes in filling in the forms. We check it from the different government databases, like population registry. We check it from the trade ban list or blacklist, that these persons have a right to establish new companies. It can be another company that actually starts this new company. And we check also who has right, which electronic identity has right to represent this other company. So it's quite good that we have this data exchange between government institutions so that we can check all this information, and it helps us to improve the data quality and put security to this process. Moreover, when the data is filled, the articles of association, which is quite a hard part of establishing a new company, meaning that you need to think of what needs to be inside the articles, how it should look like, etc., etc. So in Estonia, we decided to have this standard articles of association, meaning that you don't need to choose much. You don't need to even know what's in it, but you just need to read it through. It's automatically filled. You can make few changes with the check boxes, multiple choice answers. But basically, it's automatically generated. It helps to fasten the process not only for the entrepreneurs, but also for the registrars, because registrars do not actually need to check this anymore, because it's automatically generated. The system already checks. The business rules are already inside the technology. So again, it fastened the process of business registration. And as you can see, it's in English. Estonia, by the way, works in Estonian language quite a lot. And the courts where our business register is situated, they don't want to really work in English language. Well, they would like to, but it's not possible yet. So we need to have all the documentation in two languages, in Estonian language, which is the official language, and then in English in parallel. So we send two documents in parallel languages. But as they are automatically generated, we can read either of those. That works very well as well. Also, there is no need to actually to prepare this application. It's automatically generated again. You can read through and check if everything is correct. Then comes the most technically complicated part, which is electronically signing. It's a bit technical, but it's complicated, and that's the biggest innovation that we have. That the electronic signature is equal to handwritten signature. So we can consider that it's also in this process equal to the notarization. And it helps to start the process without any papers, nothing to upload, nothing to send later on. So there can be multiple company founders. You can have 100 people. They all need to go inside the portal and sign it electronically with electronic signature. Again, it works technically, it's complicated, but for the user, it works quite well. You put in your PIN code, and that's it. You use your card reader which in your bag. And why is it so successful in Estonia, this company registration online, is that we have a very high usage of electronic identities overall. We have over 600,000 active ID card users, and 98% of the population has this electronic identity. So it's a quite high usage. And in addition to the ID card, we also have a mobile ID, which is an alternative. If you don't have the card reader, which is in your bag, you have the mobile ID. So when I'm abroad, I can still start my company over the same screen because I can use my mobile ID. So there are multiple ways how you can authenticate yourself and sign documents electronically. And once everything is signed, application is signed in the portal, there is payment part, which is again, as you heard from the last speaker, very complicated part to do the payments. In Estonia, we managed to do this private-public partnership together with the internet banks in Estonia. We were able to connect the banks directly to the government system. So when you want to pay the state fee, you just click, pay, voila, done, online. Moreover, we managed to convince one of the banks to make a service for us that I can open a bank account online in the same process. Of course, there was big doubts in the beginning. We had data protection issues, money laundering issues, everything. It was really bad in the beginning. When we managed to go all through this, one of the banks decided to go with us. And what happened later on was that all the companies established started to move to that bank. And after that, you can imagine what happened. All the banks came to us and we want to too, we want this, yes. So that worked out quite well. And as I mentioned, you can still establish the company without the share capital payment, but you can also do it with the bank account and share capital payment. So either way, it works fine. And in doing this, we managed to register the world record, which is 18 minutes. No one has beaten us. The whole process, digital from the beginning till the end, everything in 18 minutes. Of course, it's a record. In average, it takes about 2 hours to register during the working days. We have this in-house service level agreement. And I will show you now next what are the statistics, meaning that how many people actually are using this service. So as you remember, I mentioned we gave the choice whether to use the notary or to go online as a self-service. And inside the portal, we have over 95%, meaning that 95% of the people chose online, which is more convenient. There is no price difference. It's still 190 euros per registration, whether you use a notary or you use an online. But it's so much more convenient. You don't need to go anywhere. I can be with my friend in my house or in the internet cafe and just register away. In 2 hours, while I finish my coffee, the answer will come back. Done. You have now a new company. Of course, did it help us to boom the number of businesses registered? I think in the beginning we had a small boom when we removed the share capital payment in 2009. Then we had a little bit more than usual, but Other than that, it's around 20 to 25,000 new companies per year. But the foreign investments in that sense have been growing quite well, which is good. I hope that it's due to the online company registration. And Estonia is one of the leaders in startup per capita numbers, meaning that we're doing very well in new startups. And the environment in Estonia, the business environment, is quite good for starting a new company. And we have zero tax, we have zero VAT in the beginning. It works fine. Of course, some of the companies are abusing this system by establishing every new company when it comes to 16,000, when they need to start paying VAT, then they just stop and start a new business. That's one of these challenges that we face, how to explain to those companies that it's not good. Because it's so simple, you can just do it and that's it. But I think the mentality of the businessman will change eventually, and you don't really respect the companies who are just starting and stopping, starting and stopping. You will choose your partners more wisely in the future as well. So this will change. And we have some good deals with the startups, TransferWise, FitsMe, and PrepCAD, Skype you already know. So it's good that we have this startup environment so that the new companies can start and grow faster. Last speakers also mentioned this picture, that on the internet, nobody knows your dog. It's the anonymity of the internet that is a problem for the e-government services. Internet is good, anonymity is good, but when you need to offer an e-government service, it's really bad. So we need to have the electronic identity, we need to have the electronic signature in order to authenticate ourselves and give rights to the users. So that's the challenge everybody facing. And you cannot really have electronic identity without a number. So if you don't have a public unique number of a person in your country, then you're in a big trouble. So that also helps quite a lot. Of course, the accepting foreign electronic signatures will be our challenge. As you saw, we already accept few countries electronic signatures, but it's the electronic signature which is kind of like a power adapter. When you go abroad to UK or to US, you just remember, I forgot my power adapter. That's why the electronic signatures are not working across borders, because we don't have this universal power adapter that you can use anywhere, because something is still missing. Whether the card reader that you have in your bag, that's missing, or the system that wants to authenticate yourself or get your signature doesn't understand your electronic signature. So the cross-border electronic signatures is a really problem. And I hope that the standardization, a little bit like EIDAS, will help us to solve this in the coming years. Of course, the cross-border data exchange. I will speak about this a little bit more. The e-residency itself, it solves quite many problems. It's a new way of thinking, meaning that if we cannot accept electronic identities from our foreigners, or the country where this foreigner comes does not have electronic identity, then Estonia decided we will give this electronic identity that you can use to start your business here, to run your business here, sign contracts here, not only here, but in Europe in general or across the world. So Estonia started this new initiative to issue electronic identities, and the goal is 10 million. So it's 1.3 million Estonians and 10 million e-residents in the future. I hope it will come true, but in general, it helps us as a business register manager to offer the service also to foreigners, because we're basically only digital. And if we look at the statistics, then it's booming quite well, meaning that we already have 21,000 e-residents from 138 countries. Most of the company owners that are registered in Estonia and have some business here, they have already acquired this card for themselves. Of course, the Finland, which is the closest one, is a leader in this position. Because what happened was that in the 90s, when Finland started their initiative to issue electronic identities, they kind of a little bit failed on the subject. So Estonia copied this idea, started using the same idea, but made it mandatory for every Estonian. Now, Estonian one works quite well. And it's okay to copy from each other, and I hope that this conference will give you some ideas how to copy the ideas, because the exchanging of data is one of the problems as well. Exchanging data in that sense that company information, there are so many services we can use to exchange data. And business register interconnection is one of them, and I'm really eager to see that it starts working. And EBR is the second system that has been working over 10 years. And it's possible to exchange data. But what is a problem is that the selling part, as mentioned in previous, and also maintaining the system. So if we have quite many different systems, the maintaining part will become very, very costly for the small country like Estonia. And it's not only the business register to business register interconnection. We have also land register to land register interconnection. We have from a tax register to tax register. And all the European institutions are generating their own new platforms technically to exchange data. So we need to constantly add more connections to different IT systems. And we're constantly reinventing the wheel, as we have quite many systems on the market that could be used in order to exchange data. Not only business register to business registry, but any government registry. Like in Estonia, for example, it's called X-Road. All the government institutions in Estonia must be connected to it. It doesn't matter if it's a business register or a land register or a population register. We can exchange data between the same technical platform. We should have this kind of platform for the Europe as well. Not to think of the new way of doing things. And our neighbors, as I mentioned, Finland, we copied this electronic identity from Finland. Estonia has been running this X-Road system since 2000. And now Finland decided that it's good enough for them as well. So they copied this electronic system for Finland as well. Now what happens is that we can actually connect two countries between the data hubs that we have, secure data exchange between two countries. Not only business register, but any government system to government system. So I'm hoping that this will work really, really fine, so that we can start asking information from the population register and so on. Also, Faroe Islands and some other countries have been taking this Estonian X-Road experience, technical platform, which is open source, starting adopting it. I hope Europe will decide later on as well to use similar systems, so at least the ideas, so that we don't need to build a new system every time. But the business register connection is really important, and I hope that we can come over the payment issue by saying that government-to-government data exchange should be free of charge. It's unreasonable to ask in the single market money from one government to another. We should give this business register information just like that. The beneficial owners, which is my last task to show you, is something like this. We visualize the business data because the data quality is very good. We can link persons to companies and have different views over it. So when you search for a company in Estonia, you can search one of the main companies and then see where the system goes, who is the final beneficiary. And we can go that there is a company after company after company, but in Estonia you can go from one company end to another and see, aha, here it goes. There is a stockholder, there is another company, aha. Now you can see the final beneficiary. If we had the data exchange between the government institutions in Europe, maybe we don't need to have a beneficial ownership register because all the data is already there. In Estonia, we decided that we put the beneficial owners inside the business registry. It's just one more link. It's quite easy to do this. But it doesn't really move across borders yet. So I'm hoping that BRIS, X-Road, or whatever business registry interconnection will help us to stop the money laundering or prevent some terrorism with these kind of tools and move across borders and show and visualize the business registry relations. And we have a stand outside, so you can come and check this system online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valli, and congratulations for such a big job. We will have a coffee break in 10 minutes. Perhaps you have one or two questions for the first panelist of this morning before the coffee break. Yes?
Yes, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Valli about how the beneficial ownership registration works. I mean, how do you feed the information in? Sorry. Sorry, I'm going to ask the question again. Yes, for Mr. Valli, I was wondering how you make the beneficial ownership register work, where you draw the information from and how it's updated. Thank you.
Very good question, thank you. Well, first of all, we have the information about board members and the roles inside the company. We have the information about the shareholders of a company. It's also registered in the business registry. So we let the user to reuse this information. And I have to mention it's still in the development phase, meaning that we're currently developing it. But it will be in the company registration portal that you can declare which are your beneficial owners. In Estonia, it's mandatory to submit annual reports once a year. So inside the annual report, we will just put some more boxes and say that you need to also declare your beneficial ownerships. So that's one of the ideas that we are currently implementing.
Well, and how do you do that with listed companies where shareholding changes very, very quickly, very often?
Well, thank you for the question. Of course, that might be a small issue, problematic. We need to have some rules there. In the business registry currently, we hold all above 10% of the shareholders. Or if it's less than 10%, we don't really visualize or show them out in the business registry. And I don't think it's beneficial owner is this quite important for this as well. So we have a data exchange via this kind of an X-road system that stock exchange is sending us data to the business registry. So we have quite up-to-date information about all shareholders of the companies. So that shouldn't be a problem. Thank you.
Joël Simon, Business Europe. Thank you very much, sir, for your very stimulating presentation. I think this is the demonstration that digitalization will help to prevent fraud and not the opposite, as the opponents to digitalization pretend to. Thank you very much.
You tend to get all the questions, two more. One, you talked about the VAT and just starting a new company when you reach the threshold. My impression is you're a bit too optimistic. There will be always some people who try to abuse the system. So your remark that they will learn and they will change their behavior, maybe some, but definitely some will not. And another point is security. In some countries, there are very active groups of hackers. Some maybe even quite near your border. Is cybersecurity, because if the system fails, you've got a lot of trouble. Is there enough attention for the cybersecurity part? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I will start from the last part, which is more interesting for you. Maybe my colleagues from the Ministry of Justice can help me to answer the first one about the optimism of VAT and so on. But technologically, well, as mentioned before, you can forge the paper signature, but you cannot really, no one has managed to forge the electronic signature. So it's technically the technology that we're using, public infrastructure, and even blockchain, and whatever we're using, it prevents to forge those things. So in case we had those attacks in Estonia years ago, we call it cyber attacks, and so far we have managed to keep our systems secure so that we don't have a breach in that sense. But even we keep our data in a way, kind of a blockchain way, so that even if the hackers manage to go inside the business registry, they cannot really change anything without us knowing it. So immediately when somebody changes something, we know that something has been changed. Of course, it's true, we don't have papers anymore, and we need to keep the electronic systems secure, and that's one of our challenges. We need to just be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the hackers.
If I may comment those 2 questions as well. I think the cybersecurity issue, as Ingmar mentioned, in 2007 we were the first country to be attacked in cyberspace, and therefore the X-road system actually is a very good system. It's not very centralized, so you have different very small dots. If you see the picture, if you are the hacker, then which dot would you hack? Any dot you would hack actually doesn't do anything to the whole system, because all the dots are very small and they like communicate to each other. So that is our answer to this. What comes to the fraud, then what the digitalization also gives is that as everything is digital, you can draw a map very clearly if there is something happening, like somebody is using the company, establishing a new company. We had this problem regarding the fuel companies. So basically, because they applied for huge VAT returns and then disappeared. But now we can have this on a very schematic way, that showing that okay, these are the real companies because they are doing deals with everybody, but these are the fake companies because they only do these kind of deals. And so actually the tax board can address those issues very clearly and see where the problems are, because the charts show it very well if there's something extraordinary happening.
Anyhow, I just wanted to say that we don't really have had kind of problems in the electronic signatures and electronic authentications, meaning that over the last 10 years when we have been running these e-systems, not a big thing. So I think it proves that the technology nowadays used, it's a good choice, and it helps us to really make those e-government services, government services, more effective and efficient and even more secure. I don't know, there was a VAT topic.
Thank you very much. I propose now to have the coffee break. We will have another Q&A session at 12. So if you have more questions, keep them and we will have another session for them. Okay, so please, we'll start with the second part of this panel 1. And Mr. Professor Jesper Hansen is very sorry, but he was unable to attend this conference. So we'll have the pleasure to have Mr. Professor Pierre-Henri Connac from the University of Luxembourg, for a presentation of the current EU legal framework in the field of digital company law and corporate governance, and to look at a possible way forward. Please.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the floor. So I'm not Professor Jesper Lorentzen, but my Danish colleague, unfortunately, he suffered a back pain 2 days ago, and as you can imagine, then he cannot move, actually. So he asked me to replace him, but he's a very good friend, and I know also the topic. So I hope you will be able to confuse me with the Danish at the end of my speech. Okay. So now I will be presenting this issue of digital company law and corporate governance from Jesper. So, well, as you know, company law is based on contracts, essentially, historically speaking. So it allows for a great level of autonomy because freedom of contracts, you can choose the content. Of course, this evolved with time, So in the 19th century, you had a lot of freedom. In the 20th century, you had, standard provisions which were put in place, especially after the Second World War. This is where you had the evolution, where you had laws which were much more rigid than before. But still, the idea is it's a contract. In many member states, it's in the civil code. You find the definition. Most of the legislation is default, so you can choose. And you have, so since it's a contract, it's mostly about the interest of the shareholders. But of course, you have stakeholders also in the company. And you also have sometimes provisions which are designed to protect, well, first creditors when the company becomes insolvent, and also employees. And you have co-determination in quite a number of member states. So, when legislation is passed, obviously it reflects the state of technology also and the frame of mind at the time, and this changes quickly. I mean, it's just incredible what we've been going through in the last 30 years when we think about it. Internet did not exist, but could we live without internet? No, do you remember the first undies in the 90s? No, it was like a luggage, because it was the battery. You had to carry a battery with the luggage. So the technological progress has been incredible, and we have to adapt. But as someone said, psychology moves more slowly. People move more slowly than technology. But we have to adapt, and we have to adapt the laws also, which means also company law. So company law today is out of step on many aspects with IT development. And therefore, something could and should be done to fix this disconnection between what the law says and what the real life is and what technology allows us to do. So what are the benefits of IT to member states? Well, we already spoken about the interconnection of business registers. So today, we have a single market. So you are doing business with any company. So you are based in Estonia and you are doing business with a company in Finland. Someone is coming to you and says, I'm the CEO of this company. Well, you want to check this. If you want to check this, you need to check this by going through the register. If you cannot access the Finnish register, then you're stuck. You have to believe what the guy is telling you. And maybe the guy is not telling you exactly what it is, Or maybe a guy comes from, Cyprus. And he said, I'm the CEO there in Cyprus. You don't read Greek, and you don't know if it's sure. Therefore, if you can have intention of registers, this is very helpful. So business registers bring many advantages. I've been very impressed by the situation in Estonia, which I think really shows the way forward for Europe. Brings, sorry, I went too fast. Yeah, sorry. So you have speed, you free public employees, you save on cost of building, you have to build a new warehouse to house all these papers, so you save costs on everything. So this is the way forward. Allows immediate accessibility to all information. So this is what everybody expects today, you know. We all have our mobile phones and we want information immediately. So this online registration can be done in many ways, and here I fully share what has been said, you know. Digital is more secure than non-digital. Yeah, I can also fake the signature. My mother would fake the signature of my father to sign some checks from time to time, you know, because he was, yeah. Well, I can tell you this now, but well, no, he will accept, you know, but he didn't like to pay, so my mother will help him, in a way, making the check. But now, if it's all this internet, then my mother faces a problem, so it will not work. So as you say, you could fake a signature, but you cannot fake an e-identity, you know. This is much more complex. So at the end of the day, the digital world is more secure, So all the stuff I heard, you know, from time to time about, well, you know, online registration is unsafe, will create risk, and so on. No, this is rubbish, you know. The truth is just the opposite. Online registration is more secure than not online registration. Okay, relationship between the state and company. So Jesper says companies should be available online. Registration of companies should be made online. Yes. This exists in many member states, maybe not all of them, but there have been very swift developments in this area, I have to say. So this should be made available online, and the company itself. So as I said, it's already the case in many member states, you know. For instance, you can do this in Portugal, 24 hours, it's called, the company. You can do this in Luxembourg since 1 year ago for private limited liability companies. You can do this in Estonia in 18 minutes. In other countries also you can do it. Not everywhere. This is what the Commission tried to do also with the Societas Unius Personae, you know, proposal of directive in 2014, which was designed to force the online registration on all the member states. To force it within the member state and to force it also cross-border. As you know, the proposal is stuck now in the EU Parliament, but this was the way forward. So the EU Commission, I have to say, was showing the way forward for all the European member states. And now people have caught up on this. So for instance, I will say Luxembourg, as I just mentioned, you know, you can create companies online now. Austria also has done it recently and has joined the club. Welcome in the club, you know. Now we should, you know, move forward at the EU level again. Make online registration possible digitally, make it within the member state, but exactly as you said, for Estonia, also make it cross-border. Why limit the benefits just to one member state? You know, you might be living in Estonia, want to do business in Finland, or vice versa. You may be living in Austria, wanted to make a business in Bavaria. You know? Make it the two-way rounds. So we have a single market, we should use it, you know, this is the benefit. So I'm really calling for for what the Commission is going to bring, you know, soon. We need digital online registration inside the member states, but also cross-border. It's more secure. It's not less secure. It's more secure. And I would say, you know, if we need some technical advice, well, just ask Estonia, you know. We just need to copy Estonian law, you know, and we'll be perfect, you know. Yeah. In respect of branches, the practice has been mostly to rely on the host member state, and as some of you might know, this has created problems, you know. So if you want to register your branch with the host member state, well, you end up with some issues. One of the issues was raised actually also in Estonia. It's the issue of the name. So in some member states, we want to check the name. It's more an issue of competition law in a sense, or civil abuses, but still it slows the process. So one of the ideas, at least what Jesper is proposing, is that this should be moved to the home member state. And then if there's any issue with the name, then okay, people could be sued ex post, not ex ante. Then you have the issue of publication of public information, should be done on the web. Well, the real issue here is language. So in Estonia, you solve the issue because, as I understand, you can register online in English. So this is something I think is acceptable in most member states. Of course, the national member state language should be the first one. But if you want to have cross-border registration, obviously it would be good to have something in English. Because, for instance, if you want to create a company now in Bulgaria, if it's written in Bulgarian, it would be more difficult for most people, and so on. Now, relationship between the company and its stakeholders. So, as Jesper mentioned quite correctly, each country is different. Each country is different. And this is actually what makes Europe very rich, because we are all different. And company law is a reflection of these cultural differences. What is striking in working in company law is really you realize that some rules, which are deemed to be quite normal in one member state, are deemed not to be acceptable in another one. And this is due to history, legal developments, influences, and so on. So this is very cultural, and there's no need, in a sense, to harmonize this. Quite the contrary. It's like a laboratory of experiences, and we should leave all these laboratories to strive and try to pick the best ideas when we find them. Just like, for instance, Estonia, for all the digital, progress you did in Estonia. But now, back to what the EU could do. So, we need to have some, we can do progress here. So one element would be to allow companies to use more digital tools when dealing with their shareholders. This exists already in some member states, and, but we could go forward, Also, when you take the Shareholders' Rights Directive for listed companies, there are also things which have been done at the EU level. But online, activity, digital, let's say, communication should not be limited to listed companies also. So member states also could think about, improving the situation for their own non-listed companies. Now I will give a recent example, which comes from France, my country of origin. So recently, in 2017, France introduced a new act, or passed a new act, where for non-listed companies, the general meeting can be fully online, fully digital. And I did some check, when I was a bit, looking at this, and I look at the other member states, even Estonia, and then I was surprised. Because in Estonia, apparently, you cannot have a fully online general meeting. There must be some physical guy somewhere. So this is what I understood, from my contacts, because first thing I saw digital, I looked to Estonia. But then I was, surprised, but I'm sure it's going to be fixed quickly. So apparently France could be the first member state in the EU where you can have fully online digital shareholder meeting. I'm not speaking about the board of directors. This can be online already in many member states. I'm really speaking about the general meeting for non-listed companies. So in most member states, it's a mix. So some people can take part in the meeting online, okay? They can vote online, they can attend online in a sense. But some people have to be somewhere in the room, apparently. And this is something which obviously has to be, should be changed because it can bring benefits. What did this happen in France? Well, essentially it's about cost cutting, So for instance, if you have a company with 5 shareholders, and they live in 5 different member states, it's, why do you need essentially a shareholder meeting? It's not so important. If it's a one-person company, also you don't need a shareholder meeting, obviously, for this. So this can reduce cost, and this should be left to the company to decide whether or not they want to do this. And what is in the what will be in the act? Something I advise on this. I say, look, some company you have to leave to allow minority shareholders to say no. I want the live meeting also, because in a sense, it's not the same thing to take part in a meeting remotely, from a long distance, and being here physically, being here physically. Because if you're physically, you can have a better, exchange. It's a back and forth process. So it's something which has to be done, And also you could think that some people will say, well, they had bad results, They don't want to see the shareholders, You could imagine this, So they say, let's have an online meeting, Because if it's an online meeting, then, okay, you can end up with an online riot, on your computer. You see, the computer is burning. People are not happy. but you know, you're quiet in your office, you know. It's not like being physically in the room, and then you have shareholders shouting at you and saying, we want you removed, you know, we want the guy removed. So obviously for this type of people, you know, having the online meeting, well, it can be a good idea, you know, because they say, well, let's discuss online to reduce costs, you know. Our results were very bad, so let's reduce the cost further. Let's not have a meeting at all. Let's just make online meeting. So, I mean, it's something new. You have to think really about it, and you have to have check and balances also, which means on the one hand, it's good to have this possibility for small companies, but it should not be used to abuse people. And if people say, look, we really need to have a real-life discussion, you know, and to see you and to ask tough questions, so we need to be able to block. So I think in France, it's not decided because it has to go through a decree. I think it could be something like if 5% of the shareholders oppose to the online meeting,